Picture walking to the train in 4 minutes, sitting at your desk in Center City half an hour later, and never touching the Schuylkill Expressway again. That life is real in the Philadelphia suburbs. It's just not real in most of the towns selling it to you. I'm Jim Stevenson, a realtor here in the Philadelphia suburbs, and if you're relocating here to work in the city, the town you pick decides whether your commute is a calm 30 minutes or a grind you start dreading by month 3. So let's start with a number nobody tells you. A train that says 40 minutes on the SEPTA schedule is almost never a 40-minute commute. By the time you drive to the station, find parking, wait on the platform, ride in, and walk from Suburban Station to your actual office, that 40 minutes is closer to 65 every time. I call it the door-to-door illusion, and it's the single biggest mistake I watch relocating buyers make. Here's the part that catches people off guard. The same house, a 10-minute walk from the platform, will cost you around 50 grand more than the exact same house a 5-minute drive away. That premium is the cost of leaving your car in the driveway. Pure and simple. Now here's what that tells you. There are really 2 completely different kinds of train towns out here, and you can't tell them apart on a Zillow map. You're probably thinking that any town with a SEPTA dot on the map gets you roughly the same thing, that a station is a station. That makes sense, but here's what actually happens in real life. In one town, you stroll to the platform with a coffee. In the other, you're back in your car every single morning, hunting a spot that filled up at 7:30, paying for it now that SEPTA's brought parking fees back, and the train was never really part of your day at all. This is the exact filter I run with relocating buyers before they fall for a town off a map. So the towns sort into 3 buckets. Walk to the train towns, where you leave the car home. Park and ride towns, where the train works but you're driving to it. And gray towns with a long ride, where the commute is the trade-off you accept for that lifestyle. And underneath those buckets is the borough versus township trade-off. A walkable borough gets you older homes on smaller lots and higher taxes per foot, but you can walk everywhere. A township gets you more yard and newer builds at a lower tax rate, but you're driving for everything, including the train. Same money, different life. Get the bucket right, and the rest gets easier. But which towns land in which bucket? That's not obvious. And that first bucket, the walk everywhere towns, comes with a price tag most people don't see coming. There's a handful of suburbs where you genuinely leave the car in the driveway Monday through Friday, and they're not all where you'd expect. And if you're early in your search and trying to figure out which of these towns fits your budget and your commute, grab my free Philadelphia Suburbs relocation guide using the QR code on screen. And when you're ready to narrow it down to the towns that actually fit you, there's a separate link in the description to book a call with me directly. Okay, so who makes this list? Start with Ambler, up in Montgomery County. The station drops you right onto Butler Avenue, walking distance to dinner and the Ambler Theater, and you're at Jefferson Station in about 45 minutes. The borough core feeds the Wissahickon School District, which is a big draw for families. For my money, Ambler's the safest, yes, this actually works answer for the widest range of buyers. The catch is the price. Closed homes across Ambler have been running right around $700,000 over the last 6 months. And inside the walkable borough, they're in the 600s, with the updated ones pushing higher. Inventory's tight, the good ones go in about a week and a half. One thing to watch in Ambler, there's Ambler Borough, and then there's the wider Ambler mailing address. The borough is where you get the walkability. The mailing address can be a township house where you're back to driving for everything, including the train. Same name on Zillow, but it's really a different life. On the main line, the gold standard is the Paoli-Thorndale line. Ardmore puts you 20-some minutes from Center City, walking distance to Suburban Square, and it's one of the few SEPTA stops that also gets Amtrak. Lower Merion schools, and here's what most people get wrong about Ardmore. It looks like the relative bargain of the inner main line. The median there is around 540, but that low number is getting dragged down by condos and smaller attached homes. The walkable single family you're actually picturing is a different search. And when one of those hits, buyers pounce. Ardmore's been closing at about 103% of asking on average, the most competitive town in this whole video. So the median says bargain. The sale price says bidding war. Then there's Narberth, the most walk everything town on this entire list. Tiny borough, the station's basically the middle of downtown, 15 to 20 minutes in, and you really pay for that. And Wayne, with Radnor schools and one of the best downtowns out here, where the median's up around 885. So on the main line, your money goes furthest in Ardmore and gets stretched thin in Wayne and Narberth. Down in Delaware County, you've got two quieter picks. Media, also known as everybody's hometown, has a genuinely walkable State Street and runs in the 30s to Center City, with prices friendlier than the main line. The median's been around 610, so your budget stretches further here than in Ardmore or Wayne. And Swarthmore, anchored by the Wallingford-Swarthmore schools, with an express train that gets you in around a half hour. That express also runs straight to Penn Medicine Station, which is a big deal if you work in healthcare or anywhere near University City. Swarthmore's problem has nothing to do with the town. Almost nothing ever comes up for sale, so buyers wait months for the right house. And when one does come up, over half the closings in Swarthmore the last 6 months were all cash. So you're not just waiting, you're often bidding against somebody who doesn't even need a mortgage. And one more thing on these old borough homes, Swarthmore especially, a lot of them are stone, with slate roofs and plumbing that can be original. They're gorgeous, but your inspection is not a formality here. A slate roof or a full rewire can run you tens of thousands, so budget for it before you fall in love. Here's the thread running through every one of these: the walk to the train premium. To say it plainly, you'll pay more, sometimes a lot more, for the privilege of not getting in your car. And run the quick math on that $50,000 walkability premium I mentioned earlier. At today's rates, 50 grand in extra purchase price is roughly $300 to $325 a month on your mortgage for the life of the loan. That's the monthly cost of walking to the platform. Now you might be looking at that number thinking it's not worth it, that you'd rather take the bigger house and drive a few minutes. That's a completely fair instinct. But here's what actually happens to the buyer who's in the city 5 days a week and skips the premium. A chunk of that 300 goes right back out into parking and gas, and they eat the traffic and the lost time on top of it. For the daily commuter, the premium usually pays for itself in time and sanity. So who wins in these towns? The buyer who's actually downtown most days and will use that train enough to feel it. And here's an honest one most agents won't say out loud. A big slice of that premium isn't the train at all. It's the school district. Lower Merion and Radnor are some of the best schools in Pennsylvania, and your tax bill carries that whether you use it or not. So if you don't have kids, or they're grown and gone, paying up for Wayne or Narberth just to ride the train is money down the drain. You get real train access out of a town like Media and keep the school tax premium in your pocket. But if you're hybrid or you just want more house for the money, paying that premium to walk to a train you'll ride twice a week makes no sense. So let's talk about where the smart money goes instead. These are the park and ride towns. The train still works, you're just driving to it and leaving the car in a lot all day. And the trade you're making is simple. A few minutes in the car on each end is exchanged for a lot more house. Lansdale. On the Lansdale-Doylestown line is the poster child. It's got the biggest parking setup around, a multi-level garage with hundreds of spaces, so you're never circling for a spot. North Penn schools, and the median's been sitting around $450, which means your $600 to $900 budget buys a real 4 or 5 bedroom house with a yard, not a twin. The trade-off is honest. The ride's closer to 55 minutes, and downtown's still on the way up, not fully there yet. Hatboro on the Warminster line is the value pick people skip because it doesn't have the fancy branding. It's a real walkable old borough with a working main street and Hatboro-Horsham schools. The median's been right around $440. It's the cheapest place on the whole list that still feels like an actual train town. And here's the part that matters if you're getting a mortgage. Fewer than 1 in 10 Hatboro buyers over the last 6 months paid cash. Remember, Swarthmore was over half. So Hatboro is a town where a financed offer actually competes, instead of getting steamrolled by somebody waving cash. Schools are solid, not elite. That's the trade you make. And here's a sleeper most buyers never look at: Jenkintown. The Jenkintown Wyncote station sits on 4 different regional rail lines, so the frequency is better than almost anywhere else in the suburbs. And you're 25 to 30 minutes from the city. If your number one priority is the commute itself, Jenkintown might be the most underrated rail buy around Philadelphia. One heads up, and the numbers make this really clear. The Jenkintown borough median's been around 350, but that's mostly condos and smaller homes. A family-sized house on the Abington School District side of that same line runs more like the mid-500s. So don't let that low headline number fool you into thinking the family homes are cheap. But here's the upside nobody talks about. Jenkintown's been closing at about 95% of asking, and homes sit for a month before they sell. Most of these towns, you're paying right at list or over it. Here, you've actually got room to negotiate. And there are a couple of towns everybody asks me about that don't fit cleanly in either bucket, and one of them is the most common expensive mistake I see relocating buyers make. These are the gray towns with the asterisk. Doylestown is the one. It's got the best downtown in Bucks County, hands down, and top tier Central Bucks schools. People fall hard for it, and the median's right around $7.35, so this is real money. And then they look at the train. The ride from Doylestown is about 80 minutes, one way. Do that 5 days a week, and you're spending something like 13 hours a week just sitting on a train before you've even driven to the station or walked to your office. It's fine if you're heading into the city once or twice a week. It's brutal 5 days a week. I've watched buyers fall for the town, wave off the schedule, and start dreading that platform by month 3. Doylestown is a fantastic town with a usable train. It's not a daily commute town. Same logic on Malvern, out in Chester County. You're in great valley schools with a median around 750, but unlike the inner main line, you're getting real square footage and a yard for that. The catch is you're around 50 plus minutes in, so it's a hybrid town, not a 5-day town. Buy it because you want Chester County first and the train second. And then there's the one I have to correct almost every week, Westchester. Everybody assumes it's got a train into the city. It doesn't. The regional rail line was cut back in the 80s and it never came back. Today you're driving to Exton or taking a bus. Westchester's a great town, but if you're buying it for a train commute, you're buying a commute that doesn't exist. One more thing you've got to factor in for 2026. SEPTA had a brutal funding fight last year that nearly killed 5 regional rail lines. They got a temporary lifeline, so everything's running right now, but fares went up 21%. Paid parking is back at the stations, and the funding question comes around again in a couple of years. None of that should scare you off the train. It just means you leave a little wiggle room in the budget, and you don't treat today's schedule as permanent. So here's how I'd actually sort all of this. Don't buy a town, buy a commute. Figure out how many days a week you truly need to be in the city. If it's 4 or 5 days, you've got 2 plays. Pay the premium for a walk to the train town, or keep the cash and do a fast park and ride like Jenkintown. If it's 1 or 2, the whole map opens up, and you can chase the town you love and the bigger house. Then go drive the actual commute on a normal Tuesday morning before you ever write an offer. Schedules can lie, Tuesday mornings don't. Now you know which Philly suburbs give you a real train commute and which ones just happen to have a station. But here's what trips people up right after this. They lock in the right town and still blow it on the budget because the house itself is only about 60% of the decision. The other 40% is taxes, schools, commute, and how many buyers you've got to outbid. And all of it swings hard across a 25-mile radius. Watch my video on the best Philly suburbs by price bracket next, because I'll show you what the exact same budget buys in different towns. In one, 500 grand gets you a 4-bedroom on an acre. Drive 45 minutes, and that same money barely gets you a townhouse, with a tax and HOA bill landing on you before the mortgage even starts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.